Yeah, Donatus, you may want to get closer to the mic on your end. Sorry.
Let me just do that. So, as I was saying, welcome to the PayTV Innovation Forum. All these are that they can post questions through the webinar, and we will have 15 to 20 minutes for discussion at the end, where we'll answer most of those questions. And the structure will have around 35-40 minutes for presenting key findings and discussion throughout the webinar, and the very end we'll just take questions from the audience. Our speakers today, John, a managing partner from MTM. We have Sean Trudell, Senior Director of Product Marketing at NAGRA, and we have our special guest industry, Director of Strategy from Sky. Welcome. I will now hand over to Simon Trudell just to introduce the program and what we're going to discuss today.
Yeah, Donatus, and welcome to everyone. We at NAGRA are the sponsors of the PayTV Innovation Forum that we launched earlier in 2016. The support of MTM London, and the objective of the PayTV Innovation Forum has been really to look at the innovation opportunities in the PayTV industry, and really going through a round of workshops with industry executives, as well as surveys and interviews and contacts. Over 200 people in total have been in touch with us for this program. And with this insight, we have decided to look at what really the status of innovation in the industry, what innovation leaders are doing, try to identify the characteristics and capabilities that distinguish the different leaders in different parts of the world. So through this program, and this is what we'll cover today, we'll really have a look at the opportunities that are opening up for service providers, and also the steps that are to be followed to be successful in the new market space we're getting into. In terms of the contributors to this program, as I mentioned, we interviewed executives around the world in each of the geographies, talking to PayTV service providers, OTT providers, some of the major as well content owners, and try to gather a picture of the industry today and the vision for the years to come. And thank obviously all the contributors to this program that really help us build this crystal clear view of the market today and how it's evolving. In terms of the process we put in place, as mentioned, we looked at the innovation challenges that are somehow driving change and factors that are driving change in the industry. Look at different angles and new business models that are emerging as well, and try to scope the opportunities that are to the industry for growth and deploying services and being successful as an industry, as PayTV has been over the past 15 years or more. So the scope of the research was really to look at the picture today in 2016 and have an outlook for the next 5 years and try to understand what will be driving innovation moving forward. I will ask John Watts to tell you more about the process we followed to collect this insight and the key results of the research. John?
Thank you, Simon. And hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. I take you through some of the headlines and highlights from the research that was completed during the course of the year. The program kicked off in Q1 and ran through to IBC and has been iterated and refined during the course of roughly a 6-month process. So we'd like to be able to share some findings with you today. And as we walk through the findings, I will invite Simon and our special guest, Nick, from Sky, to comment on some of the findings and some of what we see in the wider market. So first of all, perhaps an important point to start, what do we mean by innovation? Well, as everybody will know, it has been a rather poorly defined word that refers to a wide range of things, often taken to mean very disruptive new developments in a market, things are genuinely game-changing. We wanted to set the bar a little lower and to think instead about innovations which really focus on the creation of new customer-facing offerings. So to an extent, we've used the word innovation interchangeably with the development of new products in and around the PayTV ecosystem. We particularly looked at things which add some value to the PayTV business in terms of directly generating revenues or drawing efficiencies in terms of how certain products and services are delivered. Often they have benefits in terms of meeting the expectations of consumers or maintaining some sort of competitive parity in the market. I think one important thing to flag, a lot of innovation in the industry happens within the enterprise. It's about more effective processes, it's about moving technology and content out into the cloud, it's a variety of different internal structural improvements. That's not been our focus for this year of the program. We've been looking at customer-facing products and services that generate some sort of value. First of all, some context. As is probably fairly well known, the payment market is going through a period of change. There are three big factors we think happening in the market which have combined to make innovation more important for many industry participants. So the first thing flag is that for many PayTV executives in many parts of the world, growth is starting to become more challenging. So in our survey of PayTV industry executives, only less than 10% envisage strong growth in the next 3 to 5 years or so for the remainder of this decade. Mostly in emerging markets where PayTV penetration is often still very low, so there's a real opportunity to grow into that space. In other more advanced markets, however, executives expect only moderate or limited growth, and some are anticipating decline, almost the same proportion as expect strong growth. The second big issue is obviously changes in the competitive environment. And the last 10 years have probably seen two big changes which feel very relevant here. First of all, telcos have obviously entered the film and TV markets aggressively through acquisitions, most notably the AT&T DirecTV deal, but also by launching services that take advantage of the enhanced qualities of their networks. So in a real way, the PayTV and telecoms markets have converged. Obviously, a wide range of PayTV businesses also now offer telecom services themselves, Sky being a case in point here. At the same time, we've obviously seen a dramatic market entrance by often low-priced OTT service providers. As a result of which, the competitive intensity of the PayTV industry has really increased dramatically. 83% of the executives we surveyed agreed with the statement that competition in the industry is set to increase dramatically. The third driver of change, we think, is that consumer expectations are shifting. So, as new film and TV services have proliferated, operated by a wide range of businesses, consumer expectations about things like functionality, about range and depth of content available to them, often on demand, about the diverse content libraries, and about price increased or changed. Consumers now expect a much faster pace of innovation. They services to be brought to them more quickly and in flexible ways across devices and platforms. Take things together, and the payment market, we think, faces both exciting opportunities but also some real challenges. So the result of that, we think, in part, is that for many industry executives, innovation has now become one of the top strategic priorities for the industry. So in our survey, nearly 4/5 of industry executives, 82%, more than 4/5, see innovation as either the top priority or 50% one of the top 3 priorities for their businesses during the course of the next few years. Now, we don't currently have benchmarking data, but we will be revisiting these data points in the coming late in 2017, so it'll be interesting to see how these numbers change. So not only is innovation becoming more important, it's also becoming much more accessible for industry participants. And again, I think there are 3 big factors here that have really helped to make innovation more achievable for companies in the PayTV market. So first of all, advanced platforms and networks have really broadened out the range and speed with which innovations can be brought to market. So the key in many respects is that 20 years ago, PayTV platforms were inflexible, they required significant upgrade paths, they were difficult to manage and maintain, there was very limited ability to upgrade platforms without swapping out consumer premises equipment. Today, modern set-top boxes are much more rapid rates of innovation on the platforms, particularly because two-way interactivity facilitated by broad networks has made it easier to download new software and applications of those boxes. We've also seen a real wave of consolidation in the industry, both regional and within some of the larger markets. And that scale up has made innovation much more addressable. One of the things we'll be visiting as we move through the research is that large-scale providers have real competitive advantages when it comes to innovating and launching products and services across their bases. They can simply make a bigger return by monetizing these products and services across their subscriber bases. Simon, do you want to comment here in terms of what NAGRA is seeing about innovation across the PayTV industry?
Yes, I could quickly add that as a solution provider in user experience and content protection, we're obviously in touch with prospects and customers around the world, and what we've seen over the past few years is definitely a new expectations, new requirements in terms of first of all, multi-screen delivery and leveraging broadband capabilities and OTT, and also a change in terms of infrastructure that is used, more IP-based and cloud-based technologies. I think what we found through the reports and what we're hearing as well from our customers and prospects are pretty much very aligned, and we can see that innovation is at the top of the mind of customers in parts of the world, and then we'll drill down more into the details in a minute, but definitely a major shift happening.
Thank you. So let's jump on and talk a bit about the innovation landscape. So during the course of our research, we produced a framework which comprised three main pillars, which are what you see in the three columns on this diagram, as we're trying to think about the PayTV innovation landscape. So if we start on the left-hand side, obviously the starting point for us was to think about innovation on the core PayTV platform. So the set-top box-based platforms that many operators obviously still fundamentally rely upon. And we thought about new ways to price and package content. We thought of various types of advanced functionality that operators are rolling out in those boxes, things like 4K and Ultra HD or voice control. And we've also looked at new types of content offering on those TV platforms. So content from OTT providers, things like virtual reality and gaming content. The second innovation pillar in our framework that we've looked at is online services, which obviously come in various flavors. So for example, we have both standalone OTT offerings like Sky's Now TV, or various services rolling out in other markets, particularly at the moment. We have multi-screen TV everywhere offerings, so services which really extend the PayTV offer to subscribers but are connected devices. Lastly, obviously, we have app-based PayTV offerings we spent some time looking at. And the third major category, unsurprisingly perhaps, is adjacencies. So major business innovation opportunities which align with the core PayTV business, but perhaps involve extensions into other markets. So things like advanced advertising, home functionalities, in some cases B2B services to address the needs of companies across the market. Nick, I think it might be a good moment to bring you in here at this point. Nick, in terms of your role at Sky, just start by getting a sense of what you look after within Sky's business.
Sure. So the thing I look after is spread across the whole business really, and therefore we try and help ensure we make the right decisions on the big issues, whether that's bid rights, whether it's for changing our pricing and packaging, whether it's for new product launches or new brand launches. It can be anything and everything, really.
So innovation or new development is very much part of the role, I'm guessing. Can you give us a sense of how you think about the innovation landscape? How do you think about the range of opportunities open to the business?
I think we might come at it from a number of ways, and one is part of what is possible. I think the other is possible, from a technology point of view. The things that can be done today and the services that can be offered to customers is broader and more exciting than it's ever been before. And the pace of change in the technology world, the kind of the length of the innovation cycle is shortening. So in that respect, it's much busier in that there are more things you could choose to do, and therefore the lens you have to look at through these things through is which are the best things to do, because you do everything. Because I do lots of things not very well, so you need to pick and choose, because there are a broad range of opportunities that technology facilitates, and then the lens is is customers and how does this technology line up with what customers actually want. And a lot of things are a little bit circular in some cases. Things that customers really like, that they don't know that they're going to like them until they're put in front of them. In other cases, there are things that we've always known they would like that weren't possible to for them because technology didn't allow it. So I think kind of the technology lens, the customer lens, and then finally you can kind of look at the competitive landscape and see what other people are doing, what's happening around you. So those are the three things broadly that we consider when thinking about innovation.
Listening to you talk, I'm struck that the challenges and opportunities cliche feels very part of your thinking. So on the one side, the market is becoming more competitive. There are more people competing to offer film TV services, especially in advanced markets. But at the same time, there are unprecedented opportunities for pay businesses to innovate and offer new services to their customers.
Yeah, I think that's right, and competitive tension is an important part of any marketplace. I think, from a side perspective and operating in the UK, we've all had very strong constraints from to broadcasters who offer very good video services to anyone in the UK. So we've had that strong incentive to innovate that's been driven by a good free alternative. And whilst Netflix have moved on and provide services and new challenges to meet, they're adding to what's already been a very competitive landscape. I think when we look across the Atlantic at the US, the free US sector has not been as strong in the UK. But what now is, what I certainly see is the US pay TV business is really beginning to respond now to things that they've seen and the concerns around cord cutting in the US, and the pace of innovation there I think is accelerated much more because they've gone from a more benign competitive environment to one that's as competitive as everywhere else now.
It's a really interesting point, and I certainly think it's one that's borne out by some of our research. Let's move on and look at some of the findings, and we'll bring you back in again, Nick, because I think Sky rates very high in some of our scoring, which will be some good to discuss. So jumping on, look at 3 pillars then of innovation that we've just talked through. We've done a piece of research where we've analysed the portfolios of 231 of the world's largest pay TV operators across North America, Latin America, and Asia Pacific. And what you hear in this exhibit are the scores of those operators ranked across 3 different pillars that we introduced just a moment ago. So at the bottom, the dark blue shows operators who have deployed some sort of advanced functionality or capability on their platform, and we've graded those features and functionalities, those offerings, in terms of what's being offered. The light blue color then is online services, where we've looked at operators who currently are extending their services across connected devices, offering standalone OTT offerings, or, as we'll see in a small number of cases, providing some sort of some app-based pay-TV offer. And then the adjacencies piece, so which is with yellow color, which you see is much more restricted at this stage. So what you see here then is a ranking of most of the world's largest pay-TV businesses, and what we see very clearly is 3 tiers of provider. So at the bottom right, we have a set of companies who are still much focused on providing a strong, robust, set-top box-based pay-TV proposition, but have not extended that offering much more widely. Then a substantial middle tier, who not only provide services on the set-top box, also have extended their reach very broadly onto online services. And those are ubiquitous now. It's a very small minority of operators who don't currently provide online services to complement their TV platform offering. What's much less common at this stage is adjacency innovation. So the bars, as you see, are much less widely distributed. Explains this? Well, there are factors to explain it, but we think there are 2 things that feel particularly important when it comes to looking at how and why operators innovate. So first of all, and building on some of the comments that Nick made earlier, it's very clear that market enablers, both as the set of incentives that operators have to innovate, are a really important factor. Generally speaking, operators in larger, wealthier markets with high levels of broadband penetration and more intense competition have felt more pressure to innovate across different parts of their offering. However, it's very clear that scale, resources, and capabilities are really key underlying enabler of innovation. We'll come on and see it tends to be larger operators who have deployed most advanced and sophisticated portfolios. Let's have a look at that data very briefly. This then takes those innovation scorings and maps it against the indicative scale of the pay service provider. The interesting thing about this, I think, is it shows that operators at a really wide range of scales have innovated. In other words, they have extended their TV portfolios, offering new advanced features and functionalities, and they're also advanced in offering online services. When it comes to combining those with adjacency innovation, we see only a small number of operators who we've coined the innovation leaders of the industry who are offering those services. And that it tends to be larger scale operators, many of them US-based. And Sky is very clearly one of the most innovative companies we've seen in the market based on this scoring. We have a few exceptions, StarHub being a really interesting one. Sean, do you want to comment briefly on StarHub, as I know it's a client that NAGRA works with?
It's been a long time customer of NAGRA for over a decade, and what's interesting is that operating out of Singapore, a relatively geographically limited market, they go up here as a rather small player, but a very innovative one. And among the things they managed to achieve working with NAGRA is the launch, for instance, of the Netflix application on their set-top boxes earlier this year. Also, a number of projects that have led to a quite sophisticated and advanced user experience on set-top boxes and other devices. As a cable operator, they've also moved to a lot of their services to IP delivery, and really are in that sense ahead of the curve. And finally, on the data and advertising side, they've leveraged they get from connected devices and set-top boxes to offer targeted advertising. So examples show that even if they are operating in a small market, by making the right focused decisions on new services and capabilities to their platform, are able to offer very innovative service, very profitable business, and really stay on top, despite the fact that they are in a more geographically limited market space.
is one of the most innovative pay TV businesses in the world, based on the profile scoring and the research that we've conducted. We think about the things that make Sky unique, the things that have enabled to diversify quite so successfully. Are there any factors which really stand out for you?
I think there are probably three things. I think is scale. I think scale has been important to the story of Sky's innovation, because this allows us the financial power to make investments in those bets, but also to have the customers over which to make a return on those investments over time. I simply is probably the vertical integration. So being in the content space and playing in the content space and operating our own content services makes it much easier, because one of the big barriers to innovating in the pay TV space is content rights, and who really have a nervous view about forms of innovation that they feel might harm their business model. So our own position in content has allowed us to take through some of that, or to launch services with off the bat of our own content. And then finally, the third one, I think it's a cultural thing. I think innovating and being a challenger brand has been in Sky's DNA since it launched, 25 years ago, and was much derided as a business that wasn't going to succeed. So I mean, even though it's grown to be a lot bigger, there's a cultural element that remains, and the successive sort of chief executives have tried hard to maintain and champion. So those are the three things I'd say.
Great points, and it will be really interesting to see them echoed in some of the research that we'll take you in a moment, as I think they're very pertinent to what we've uncovered in some of this analysis. What we come across very strongly, we feel, from research, which is worth, I think, emphasizing, is that the pay TV industry globally is very innovative. So look here at these scorings. You see the range of scores across different operators within those regions, and also weighted average, where we weighted it based on the size of the portfolios. And what is obviously, I think, is that operators in North America and EMEA, because of the kinds of circumstances and factors that we highlighted earlier, are more advanced on average than some of the operators in APAC and Latin America. But the most innovative operators within those regions are on a par with one another in many respects. In other words, operators all around the world are innovating quite strongly in certain areas, especially around set-top box, where the industry is very much a global industry, supported global technology suppliers. Very few pay TV operators build their own boxes. They tend to be specified and bought, obviously, from companies who often have global scale. Now, we're going to drill down a little bit into the data very quickly to show you some of the other variations which we thought were particularly interesting. So, first of all, looking at service providers in terms of how they have innovated on their top-of-range set-top boxes, and just making that point that we made earlier. What I think is that when we look at things like IP connectivity or PVR capabilities, a fairly wide range of pay TV providers across all of the major regions of the world are offering quite advanced features now. If we get down to the right-hand side of the graph, where we're looking at things like 4K video or voice control, it's a lower penetration level of take-up yet. Fewer operators have yet deployed these services, but we expect these to follow, obviously, in the next few years. But one innovation which we felt was a bit of an outlier, which is worth thinking, is that third-party applications on set-top boxes, so having content from providers like Netflix or YouTube offered on set-top box, is more common in the US market, perhaps reflecting the fact that is one of the main internet markets in the world, and certainly rates of take-up and usage by US consumers are ahead of some other markets where mobile first is a more prevalent factor. Jump on, TV everywhere services, as we mentioned, are pretty ubiquitous across most major markets. So almost every major North American pay-TV operator is now offering some sort of TV everywhere capability. 90% of the mere operators and 2/3 in APAC and LATAM. Standalone OTT services like Sky's Now TV offering are less common. So around 40% of the major US MVPDs, a third roughly of EMEA providers, and a smaller proportion of operators in APAC and Latin America. And then by contrast, app-based pay TV, so delivering pay TV services without the use of some sort of consumer premises equipment, so piggybacking on smart TVs or connected sets in some way, is much less common. A small percentage of operators, most of them in North America or EMEA, are currently offering their pay TV services in this way. And the area which really stands out as being somewhat distinctive is the adjacencies. We mentioned when we were summarizing the research, operators deploying adjacencies are much less common. And when we look here, we see the maroon bar in the middle, which is North America, to the extent to which some of the big US MVPDs are much more advanced in offering things like home security and home automation, advertising and data services, and in widening their technologies. It's a much lower proportion of operators and markets are currently investing in these particular areas. We then turned and asked executives in our research where they see scope for innovation. And perhaps reflecting some of the challenges we alluded to earlier, that which operators surveyed in our research see as presenting the most attractive opportunities. First of all, the core set-top box. So 2% argue that new ways to price and package content and new types of content offering are one of the most attractive and important opportunities for their businesses. And then screen TV everywhere is the other standout. 76% of our survey sample suggesting that this is one of the most commercially attractive areas of opportunity. Nick, I wonder if I can bring you in here again. When you think about the next 5 years, where do you see substantial scope for further innovation across the pay TV industry as a whole? These survey findings surprise you? Obviously, when we drill down into particular regions, the findings look rather different. But are there areas that you see as being particularly ripe for innovation and investment by TV operators today?
I think these are sort of the areas where a lot of people are putting their focus today. I think I'd expect to see quite a lot of this stuff coming online and taking effect within the next, 2 to 3 years. Over a sort of slightly longer term time horizon, I think some interesting areas are around how the customer user interface evolves and how businesses get more effective at personalizing what customers see when they open up the user interface, the way in which they engage with it, whether it's touchpads or voice control, and the speed at which they get updated as people start moving more software services up to the cloud. So probably the one I see where I still think there's quite a lot of scope for improving that, because I think what we've seen over the last few years and what we're still sort of seeing now is that there's a fragmentation in terms of content services and ways to access content, short form, long form, different providers, more content being made than ever before, being made available than ever before, and what the big businesses, I included, have got scope to get a lot better at is aggregating that up in a way that is really, really customer friendly and allows people to to find their way towards the video that's really important to them as easily as possible. That's probably to say one thing, that would be my main thing.
A fascinating point, Nick. Obviously, paid operators are typically sold services to households, but in an unbundled world where things like personalization and recommendation are becoming more important, then start to segment the household in more detail and think about how to deliver content services to individuals within the household, even more so than today through advanced interfaces. Feels like a really interesting area for innovation.
And I think there's a lot of friction for customers today, sort of switching between different interfaces, logging to different things, passwords, being some things on some devices, not on other devices. I think there's friction for customers that is right for someone to try and solve, and I suspect there will be no shortage of people trying to solve that problem.
I think it's a good example as well why there are interesting regional differences in some of these priorities. We ran a webinar this morning for the Asia Pacific region, and our guest from Indosat suggested that one of the big innovation priorities is payment. To find ways to help people actually pay for content in markets where credit card penetration is still often very low, which is like a very big difference between some other markets. So really interesting regional variations underpinning some of these figures, I think. Let's talk a little bit about challenges then. So whilst our sample and explored during the course of the programme some of the big innovation challenges facing operators, or rather say the innovation challenges that operators perceive to be most important when they think about what holds them back. And as you can see, there's a wide range of different issues, and the scoring variations across these factors are quite limited. So people perceive to be a variety of different things that are difficult. However, the things that sort of stand out at the top curve, I guess, are lack of skills and capabilities internally. 58% cited this, 55% cited difficulties measuring return on investment, and then Nick, I think to your point about access to content rights, the 50% suggested that this was a significant barrier facing their business. Simon, you obviously work with PayTV providers around the world. What kind of challenges and barriers do you see that make it hard or can make it hard to draw on their innovation priorities?
Yeah, I think in the obviously in this list of challenges, some are related to providers, their corporate culture or own organization and coping with change. Some of the topics, and I think we mentioned rights, content rights is obviously a challenging one for all our customers. It's an area where obviously with 4K and the new content protection requirements or download to go or download to own models, there are obviously some work to be done with content owners to convince them to go forward with these models. As a technology provider, we're the content is protected for all these different use cases and business models. And we obviously very good take-up of the technologies we brought to market. Still more to do, and I think it will be definitely an area of growth and development in the coming quarters.
Nick, this is a horribly unfair question, I'm sure, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are there practical steps that you would recommend from your experience operators could take to address some of these challenges? Things that you've seen companies do, or you think the industry steps that different providers could take that help to reduce some of these challenges, or very important?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and the things that I articulated as the reasons why I think Sky is decent in this area are not straightforward to overcome. Just simply getting scale and being vertically integrated is not something that can happen.
We've called by Time Warner, I guess.
No, that's right. But I think it's quite interesting, though, isn't it? That quite a few of these are people or cultural problems. So, of skills and capabilities, senior management consensus, corporate risk avoidance, limited time from key personnel, lack of cooperation between teams. Of them, half of them are people or cultural ones, which are things that can be overcome with the right commitment and the right leadership within a business, and some particularly around about priorities. Again, is something that should be solved pretty. It requires the right individuals who can focus things down. But again, it plays a little bit to a point we talked about right at the beginning when you asked about how we think about innovation at Sky. One of the challenges is deciding which of the opportunities you're going to pursue and not getting distracted by too many different things. So there are things like that, I think, relatively easy to solve. A genuine desire and effort dedicated to solving them.
I think it's a really good point. As well, some of this reflects the stage that the pay TV business is in within particular markets. So if your business is in a market where pay TV penetration is very limited, so there's still substantial headroom for growth just with the existing pay TV offer, then it may be very rational to avoid distractions and to focus very ruthlessly on that particular priority. But on the other hand, you're an operator who already has scale in a market which is competitive and offers much more limited headroom for growth, then diversification and developing other service offerings which really help to monetize your base becomes much more of a priority.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, and I look back over my history, and equally the strongest innovations that has come up with have coincided with the greatest competitive intensity, or the incentive or imperative to really push, and that's partly why I think the UK TV market punched above its weight in terms of innovation, because it's always had frequent periods where there's been strong amounts of competition from a whole range of different players, whether it's free-to-air players or telcos or new TV businesses. They've sort of come wave after wave.
You're right. So we're running a little short on time. So let's turn then to some of the main conclusions coming away from that. So some time with their operators, as Simon suggested, around the world, exploring with them some of the priorities that feel important to address for pay TV providers looking to become more innovative. 4 things that came out of that which feel very important. So first of all, it felt extremely critical to have strong customer market insight capabilities that really give some insight into the changing tastes, needs, wants and preferences of your existing customers, but also prospects and of competitors across markets. If you don't understand what your customers want or what the economics of opportunities look like, it's very hard to know where and how to innovate and what to invest to pursue these opportunities. Secondly, as has been a theme throughout the course of the programme, continuing to deploy platforms and business processes that really support faster innovation is a really critical priority. Simply put, if your team platform doesn't support innovation or deployment of new products and services, your ability to innovate as a pay TV provider is vastly reduced. Thirdly, partnerships with technology suppliers is a really key priority, we think, for operators. It's worth saying, I think, that many of the world's largest pay TV operators and also medium and small-sized operators tend to develop new products and services working in partnership with technology companies who often have to obviously scale their investment across multiple operators, across multiple markets. Really, those partnerships work is incredibly important. As well, at the same time, we've seen over the course of the last 10 to 15 years a flourishing and growth in the range and quality of startups, of businesses launching around the pay-TV space who potentially have something to offer pay-TV providers, whether it's content, whether it's new data capabilities, new advertising formats. This partnership feels like a clear priority. And mainly, as has been mentioned on a couple of occasions, build partnerships with content companies to help lock some of these new opportunities for delivering content across different platforms feels really vitally important. It's also to say that this is the area where we think possibly the industry has the most work to do. There are still two examples of really successful collaborative partnerships where content companies and platform providers are collaborating to build new commercial offerings that unlock value for mutual benefit. But I think we expect to see more of that in coming years. Nick, a final question to yourself before we go over to questions from the webinar participants. 2025, it's certainly far enough away that no one's going to hold you to this, but based on what you've seen over the last 10 years, what would you expect to look most radically different at the market just under 10 years out from now, the midpoint of the next decade? Are things that you think will look really different to the pay TV industry?
I think the things that will be most different will probably will evolve around those things I touched on earlier. That was 5-year time horizon. I think around the UI, the degree of personalization and how people interact with UIs and the voice, and potentially the crossing over of kind of artificial intelligence into providing recommendations. I think it's going to be more about, the difference will be how much easier it becomes for people to the things that are really important to them, or to engage in a conversation with their top box or their action to find something that suits the mood they're in at that point in time. I think some of those things, particularly on the AI side of things, we're only beginning to scratch the surface of what it's going to be capable of, but within a 10-year window, then I think with more processing capability being moving up into the cloud, that I think some of that will become a reality.
Those are great points. Now we have time for a few questions, which have been filled.
Yes, thanks everyone. So we received a couple of questions from our audience. To start, there was one. So people watching TV everywhere with the kind of key or the most attractive area of opportunity for pay providers. Within that, how do you see mobile, and how important is it, and what are the most innovative big operators doing in that space? Maybe you're able to answer that.
Yes, to quickly comment, through the research we've touched a little bit upon new forms of content, and obviously we're seeing now emerging that are specifically designed for mobile experience, so shorter length and focus experiences on smaller screens, with obviously the capability of bringing this to a larger screen through casting technology. And as well, in some emerging markets, clearly mobile operators investing in content to monetize their networks or reduce churn and develop new ways of build stronger relationship with subscribers. And then if we listen to content owners in the industry, also see mobile as a very important platform, a new platform for distributing content. So I think we will look more into this in 2017 as part of the next legs of the PTIF program. But definitely something is going to be happening around mobile role in distribution.
And Sky has just announced its in launch of its mobile services. So I'm guessing you see it as an area where there's lots of scope for innovation for pay TV providers.
Yeah, so I mean, it's sort of with some of the things they're saying here. I think there's still work to be done for a lot of operators around the world, making sure that their propositions are truly multi-screen and that people can get their subscriptions on every single device. And although we've been talking about that for years, in some cases that's still being brought to customers and being brought to customers in a better way. I think the challenge in it, and it relates again to kind of the personalization point, is the type of content that people want to watch on mobile is a bit different to what they want to watch on big screen. And some of it will be location dependent and some of it will be sort of time dependent. So there's probably quite a lot of work to be done to work how you optimize what's presented to people on different size screens. And at the moment, one of the things that we don't do as well as we'll need to over time is how you solve that question for customers as well, and trying to make everything available on every screen. But when everything is so much, then exactly the same experience on every screen size is probably not the optimal outcome.
Right. I think one of the things we've been looking at as well of late in relation to mobile are the opportunities for pricing and packaging innovation. So pay TV operators roll out trade services and enter the mobile market, and consumers increasingly look to consume content, including film and TV content, on their handsets. The issue that often obviously becomes very prevalent are the data costs, and there are a multitude of opportunities, we think, for innovative pricing and packaging, data holidays, these sorts of things, which can really help to stimulate demand for them as a key part of the pay TV offering.
Thanks. So another question for you on set boxes. So they've been around for quite a while, and whether you think they are an important platform going forward. Do you see them sticking around for long and evolving, or what's your view?
I think again in the research we've seen an focus on the big screen experience and the services that are provided in terms of time shifting and accessing high quality content like 4K, etc. So there's definitely in most major markets still a lot of value in the set-top box and in the big screen experience overall, with the set-top box being probably the most effective way of providing a consistent experience across all TV sets that are out there for all households. There will be new form factors to bring content to the big screens. This is the case, and we will probably keep seeing a mix of different options, depending on the type of package people subscribe to or the type of personalization they're looking for. So we expect that the set box is going to be still a very important factor in delivering high value add user experience. And it also needs to be integrated with other multi-screen devices in the home. And that's also something that the most advanced operators have started providing, and making sure consumers can move content around and watch it on the most appropriate screen in the home or even on the go.
We have time for one final question, and that's for Nick, talking about the new type of content offering, which is also seen as one of the key areas of innovation in our study. One of the needs is just asking, what do you see as how the content offering of pay TV service providers evolving, and what's innovative in that space?
I suspect what will emerge is flexibility for customers to pick and choose different pieces. So I think it's right. There'll be innovation in pricing and packaging. I think we need to wait and see to the extent to which form or shorter form content catch on the big screen. I think there being huge innovation in content. Good content is still good content, and that's based on the ability of people to tell fantastic stories, and there's content throughout every decade, and I'm sure that will continue. I see the innovation, and there's going to be more around in which people can pick and choose the package that suits them, and the extent to which medium form content grows in popularity on the main screen. I'm not sure where as yet. I think that a little bit will be customer led.
One of the other themes that was emerged during the course of the study is the growing interest in, I guess, the new wave of digital video brands being brought onto TV platforms. So in the US, for example, we've seen businesses like NAGRA Studios, now owned by Disney, providing content for various PayTV platforms, services like YouTube, and I think a growing wave of digital video businesses starting to make their way, sitting side by side with some of the more traditional channel brands, create a really vibrant and diverse content, just extending the range of services available. So content creation is being democratized to some extent. I think we're broadly out of time, unfortunately. So we just hand over to Simon to talk a little bit about what happens next.
John, just to recap, I think the 2016 edition of PayTV Innovation Forum has provided very rich insight into the innovation strategies and challenges that the industry is facing. Looking forward in 2017 to extend this program and obviously update our benchmarks and be able to compare the evolutions over year, as well as survey industry executives and participants to our workshops and surveys to find out as well about some of the new topics that are getting to the top of the agenda for service providers worldwide. So we think that this exercise has a lot of investigation areas to contain, and we're really excited to have even more participants to our sessions in the coming months. A quitter for all the participants to this webinar. The global report that we covered during this presentation is available on the NAGRA website, so dtv.nagra.com/pvif. We have the address on the slide. And you will also find on this page 4 other regional reports that look at the findings in different areas of the world, as well as a number of industry executive interviews and articles that have been produced throughout the course of the program in 2016. So watch this space, more coming, and obviously feel free to come back to us if you want to be part of the 2017 round.
Great, and huge thanks to Nick for joining us today. Much appreciated. Thanks, Juan. And just a quick note, if you want to share this webinar with any of your colleagues, friends, Everything will be available online after the event. So feel free to share the message. Thank you.
Thank you all.